Trump won the war with Iran. It's a total unconditional victory. The US achieved all its goals and even exceeded them. At least that's what the American president himself says. Iran, for its part, is claiming its own victory. Iran's Supreme National Security Council claims the cowardly enemy suffered an indisputable, crushing defeat. Perhaps the only thing the sides agree on so far is that a temporary truce between the US and Iran has indeed been reached. So what happened? What are the terms of the truce? What did the sides agree on? Or haven't they agreed yet? What about the Strait of Hormuz? What about Iran's nuclear program? How will all this affect American politics? Who won and who lost? Let's find out. A month and a half ago, at the very end of February, the US and Israel attacked Iran. America outlined several goals it's pursuing in its military operation: destroy Iranian missile systems, the Navy, and the nuclear program. Ensure the state stops sponsoring terrorist groups in the region. Trump also hinted at regime change as one of the objectives from time to time. But after initial successes, the focus quickly shifted to the Strait of Hormuz. A fifth of the world's oil supply is transported through this vital artery. Iran began blocking cargo transport using missiles and drones. Energy prices spiked worldwide. The White House came under pressure. The war wasn't very popular with American citizens to begin with. Rising gas prices became a source of discontent for many people. The US tried to ensure safe passage for ships through the strait, but failed. Trump had previously issued 2 ultimatums for Iran to open the passage. Both times, the attempt led to nothing. As the deadline for the 3rd ultimatum approached, the US president wrote that Iranian civilization would likely be destroyed.
A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will.
But 2 hours before his ultimatum expired, Trump posted that the US was reaching a truce with Iran. The condition was the opening of the Strait of Hormuz.
Subject to the Islamic Republic of Iran agreeing to the complete, immediate, and safe opening of the Strait of Hormuz, I agree to suspend the bombing and attack of Iran for a period of 2 weeks. This will be a double-sided ceasefire.
This hardly looks like the triumphant end to the war the American president likely dreamed of. Opening the Strait of Hormuz wasn't and couldn't be the goal of the military operation because Iran hadn't blocked it before the conflict. Now, returning to the status quo has become a condition for the ceasefire. After the truce was announced, oil prices plummeted and have already dropped by 15%. They haven't returned to pre-war levels yet, but the Republican administration can breathe a sigh of relief, at least for now. Interestingly, the current truce was brokered by Pakistan. The Pakistani Prime Minister congratulated the parties on progress in the peace process and also invited the American and Iranian delegations to Islamabad for further negotiations.
I warmly welcome this sagacious gesture and extend deepest gratitude to the leadership of both countries, and cordially invite their respective official delegations to travel to Islamabad on Friday, April 10th, 2026, to further negotiate for a final and conclusive agreement to permanently settle all of their outstanding disputes.
Donald Trump told reporters from the New York Post that Special Envoy Witkoff and the president's son-in-law Kushner will travel to Islamabad from the US. It later emerged that the American delegation was led by US Vice President J.D. Vance, although Donald Trump initially told reporters that he did not want to send them to the negotiations for security reasons. It must be said that J.D. Vance has been an opponent of the war with Iran from the start, despite the fact that he publicly, plays along with Donald Trump, because in the Trump administration, you can't have an opinion different from the president's. But it's more or less clear to everyone, both from journalistic insiders and based on what J.D. Vance has stated before, that he doesn't like this war. Moreover, when the decision to start the military operation was being made, J.D. Vance wasn't even invited to that discussion. But on Friday, the parties knit. Discussions on a peace treaty have begun, but so far they haven't led to anything. According to the Iranian Foreign Ministry, the parties cannot agree on 2 or 3 key issues. Vance confirms that the negotiations have reached a stalemate for now. The American delegation has left Islamabad, but negotiations will likely continue. It's still unclear on what format. Active discussions are currently underway regarding the possible terms of a final agreement. Previously, in late March, rumors circulated in the press that the states had handed Iran a certain 15-point peace settlement plan. We don't know exactly what was included in that plan. Anonymous White House members only reported on these points to journalists in general terms. The main points included restrictions on Tehran's missile and nuclear programs, the opening of the Strait of Hormuz, and the cessation of Iran's support for terrorist groups. So essentially, the plan provided for the fulfillment of the main war goals that Trump initially outlined. But in return, sanctions were lifted from Iran. The US also offered to help finance the construction of a new civilian nuclear program in Iran. Tehran rejected such an offer. Iranian representatives called the demands excessive and unrealistic. Meanwhile, Trump himself dismissed the Iranian refusal. He said that negotiations were going well and that Iran had agreed to most terms. Now, Donald Trump, in his post, cited an Iranian peace plan and called it a viable basis for talks.
We received a 10-point proposal from Iran and believe it is a workable basis on which to negotiate. Almost all of the various points of past contention have been agreed to between the United States and Iran, but a 2-week period will allow the agreement to be finalized.
What is contained in these 10 points? If the statement from Iran's Supreme National Security Council is to be believed, then these terms are not very favorable for the US. A list of demands includes, for example, paying reparations to Tehran for damages and lifting all sanctions against Iran, including secondary ones, a withdrawal of all American troops from the region, and the cessation of all hostile actions against Iranian allies, and the axis of resistance, groups such as the Houthis, Hezbollah, and so on. The United States and many Western countries consider them terrorist organizations. In addition, the list of conditions includes Iranian control over the Strait of Hormuz. The Iranian National Security Council even claims that Iran has already forced criminal America to agree to the terms of a 10-point plan. Most likely, this is a major exaggeration. Yes, the states really have been bogged down in the war longer than expected, and in some cases have even made concessions to Iran. For example, America recently lifted some oil sanctions on Iran and Russia, but it's unlikely Washington is so desperate that it's ready to pay reparations to Tehran. In short, one might doubt the proposal's points are as Iran describes them. Also, Iranian representatives sometimes contradict each other. For example, one version of the plan includes a point about Iran's right to enrich uranium. In another version, there is no such point. A bit later, an anonymous White House official told reporters that the 10-point plan circulating in the media differs from the one presented by the Iranian side. The White House press secretary soon said that there are actually 2 versions of the 10-point plan.
The Iranians originally put forward a 10-point plan that was fundamentally unserious, unacceptable, and completely discarded. It was literally thrown in the garbage by President Trump and his negotiating team. Many outlets in this room have falsely reported on that plan as being acceptable to the United States, and that is false. Acknowledged reality to the negotiating team. They put forward a more reasonable and entirely different and condensed plan to the president.
The US Vice President said that there were actually as many as 3 10-point plans.
The first 10-point proposal was something that was submitted, and we think, frankly, was probably written by ChatGPT, that was submitted to Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. That immediately went in the garbage and was rejected. There was a second 10-point proposal that was much more reasonable, that was based on some back and forth between us, between the Pakistanis, and between the Iranians. That is the 10-point proposal that the president was referencing in his truth yesterday. And then, frankly, I've seen a third 10-point proposal that's even more maximalist than the first 10-point proposal that's been floating around various social media channels.
A somewhat more moderate position was expressed by the Iranian foreign minister. Abbas Araghchi confirmed that the US accepted the plan only as a basis for further negotiations. At the same time, Araghchi noted that Iran, in turn, will consider Washington's counterproposal of 15 points. Therefore, it's possible that in the next 2 weeks, both sides will try to coordinate their versions of a peaceful solution to the conflict. The American 15-point plan and the Iranian 10-point plan. However, there is reason to believe that the fragile peace, which has barely been established, could be broken in the near future. The Iranian Speaker of Parliament posted a statement on Twitter. He accused the US of violating the terms of the ceasefire. Against this backdrop, reports have appeared in the Iranian media that Iran is once again blocking passage through the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz remains the main bone of contention between the two sides. During the ceasefire, Iran initially agreed to lift the blockade. On one hand, this turn of events looked like a victory for the White House. This is exactly what the administration had been seeking for many weeks. Oil prices began to fall, while shares of American companies started to rise. On the other hand, it soon became clear that things weren't so simple. The strait is open, mostly in name only. De facto, oil transit has not resumed. Over the following days, oil prices stopped falling and still remain significantly higher than pre-war levels. The thing is, even after the ceasefire was announced, companies aren't eager to ship cargo through the strait. At the moment, about 800 ships are waiting for passage. The situation remains tense. Without insurance for their vessels, no one wants to take the risk. But insurance costs have skyrocketed since the start of hostilities, in some cases by as much as 1,000%. For shipments to start happening en masse again, shipping and insurance companies must be convinced that their cargo is not under threat. But no one can give them such guarantees right now. On the first day of the ceasefire, the Iranian foreign minister made a statement that the passage of ships would be under Iranian military control. Iranian media affiliated with the IRGC reported that 2 tankers passed through the strait after receiving permission from Iran. From the very beginning, this confused and alarmed cargo carriers. What exactly does this mean? Will Iran let all ships through as before or not? The head of the Pentagon was asked to clarify the situation.
Iran has said that safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz will be possible in coordination with Iran's armed forces and, quote, technical limitations. What do you believe that means?
In response, he simply said that the strait is open.
What we know is that Iran is going to say a lot of things. A lot of people are going to say a lot of things, claim a lot of things. What has been agreed to, what's been stated, is the strait is open.
Ceasefire wrote the strait would open completely and immediately. But these American assurances convince few. While the first ships did cross, cargo traffic remains far below former levels. Previously, about 130 cargo barges and tankers crossed Hormuz in a single day. Now, these figures vary between 5 and 10 ships per day. The largest logistics company, Maersk, reported,
At this point, the situation remains uncertain, and we expect it to continue to evolve. At this stage, we're taking a cautious approach and are not making any changes to the operation of individual services. While the ceasefire is a positive step towards stability, the situation in the region remains risky.
Moreover, reasons to doubt the durability of the established peace appeared almost immediately. On the very first day, reports appeared in Iranian media that Iran was suspending oil transit through the strait. The reason for this was Tehran's disagreements with Israel. Previously, Pakistan, the mediator in the negotiations, announced that the 2-week ceasefire covers the entire region, and even specifically highlighted Lebanon. There, following the Iran war, tensions escalated. Hezbollah shelled Israel, and the IDF responded by invading and occupying territory.
The government of the Islamic Republic of Iran and the United States of America and its administration, along with their respective international allies, have officially agreed to an immediate ceasefire across all active conflict zones, including Lebanon and all other regions, effective immediately.
But Israel believes the truce doesn't apply to Lebanon, so military operations against Hezbollah will proceed as planned. That same day, Israel stated it launched its largest strikes on Beirut since the war began. Some suggested Netanyahu was sabotaging the peace process this way, but Donald Trump soon clarified that he supports Israel's position. In a phone call with a reporter, he said the ceasefire doesn't affect Lebanon, calling it a separate skirmish. Meanwhile, the White House initially said Iranian media were lying about the strait being closed again. Behind the scenes, they said Tehran was assuring the president that cargo could travel freely through the strait.
Again, this is a case of what they're saying publicly is different privately. We have seen an uptick of traffic in the strait today, and I will reiterate the president's expectation and demand that the Strait of Hormuz is reopened immediately, quickly, and safely. That is his expectation. It has been relayed to him privately that is what's taking place, and these reports publicly are false.
But amid this confusion, logistics companies are becoming even more convinced that no guarantees of safe passage currently exist. And 2 days later, Trump himself confirmed that Iran was still blocking traffic.
Iran is doing a very poor job, dishonorable some would say, of allowing oil to go through the Strait of Hormuz. That is not the agreement we have. President Donald J. Trump.
However, a couple of days later, the US president said that, as it turns out, the strait is open and everything is fine.
One other thing that's happening is that boats are sailing up and heading out to our country. Big, beautiful tankers, and we're loading them up with oil and gas and everything else, and it's a pretty beautiful thing to see.
Journalists began asking Trump uncomfortable questions since the strait is effectively closed. The president said that the journalists simply don't know anything.
How do you know that? Why do you say that? Why do you say that? You don't know anything. Who are you with?
NBC News, Philly Circuit.
ABC?
NBC.
Well, let's make news.
Mr. President.
Along with this, Trump said that the US would now quickly open the closed strait.
And now we're going to open up the Gulf, with or without them. But that'll be open. We're going to be, or the strait as they call it. And I think it's going to go pretty quickly. And if it doesn't, we'll be able to finish it off one way or the other
In some cases, the president says that America doesn't actually need this strait, claiming other countries use it, not Americans. Sometimes he says that the strait will now open automatically. Iran still has the technical capabilities to continue the blockade. Yes, the American fleet dominates the sea, but that hasn't stopped Iran from controlling ship traffic. Earlier, Tehran launched missiles and drones from deep within the country, far from the coast. If they start doing it again, or even just threaten to do so, it won't be possible to guarantee safe passage for all vessels. Besides, there are now sea mines in the strait, which further complicates the situation. Iran still retains the capability to launch missiles. Even members of the US administration are saying this. For example, here's how the head of the Pentagon declared that the war ended in a US victory.
Operation Epic Fury was a historic and overwhelming victory on the battlefield. A capital V military victory.
But he immediately added that Iran still has missiles, although he said they were just the last remnants. For 3 days, no more.
They can still shoot, we know that. Their command and control is so decimated they can't really talk and coordinate, so they still may shoot here and there, but that would be very, very unwise.
According to anonymous US intelligence officials, Iran still has about half of its missile launchers and thousands of kamikaze drones. This is reported by CNN. Rumors have also appeared in Iranian media that Iran intends to charge a fee for passage through the strait. According to some reports, such a system has already existed de facto in recent weeks. Vessels from countries friendly to Iran sometimes use the right of passage for a fee. The cost of passage was $2 million. It is reported that payment was made via crypto or Chinese yuan. Trump said the other day that he wants to charge a fee for passage through Hormuz himself.
Us charging tolls?
Iran.
What about us charging tolls?
Is that something you're considering?
I'd rather do that than let them have them, right? Why shouldn't we? We're the winner. We won, okay? They are militarily defeated.
And to another journalist, the president said he wants to collect such fees from ships together with Iran. But soon, Trump admitted that this is actually a problem.
There are reports that Iran is charging additional fees to commercial tankers going through the Hormuz Strait. They better not be. And if they are, they better stop now. President Donald J. Trump.
Ultimately, the US president said that the US itself would begin blocking the passage of ships through the strait.
Effective immediately, the United States Navy, the finest in the world, will begin the process of blockading any and all ships trying to enter the Strait of Hormuz, or leave it. At some point, we will reach an all being allowed to go in, all being allowed to go out basis, but Iran has not allowed that to happen.
In the same post, Donald Trump said that the US fleet would intercept those ships that paid a toll to Iran.
I have also instructed our Navy to seek and interdict every vessel in international waters that has paid a toll to Iran. No one who pays an illegal toll will have safe passage on the high seas.
I already joked on my Telegram channel that this behavior is like that of a 3-year-old child. Oh, you're blocking the Strait of Hormuz? No, I'm blocking the Strait of Hormuz myself. But even if shipping resumes in full, it's unlikely to bring oil prices back down to previous levels. Many oil production stations in the region were damaged during the war. The US and Israel bombed Iran. Iran bombed its neighbors. You can't fix this kind of damage with a snap of your fingers. Even facilities untouched by the war won't immediately return to pre-war sales volumes. Supply chains were disrupted during the war. Production slowed down. Scaling it back up to previous levels will take time. Plus, the increased risk in an unstable region will keep insurance company rates from dropping. And that, in turn, will also affect the cost of transported goods. This doesn't mean that petroleum product prices won't start to fall. They've already dropped 15%, as I said. But it will take time for energy costs to drop to pre-war levels. And that's assuming a stable peace is actually achieved. But whether such a stable peace will be reached anytime soon is a big question. In recent days, the US president has suddenly shifted to rhetoric about not caring if a deal is made, claiming the US has already won anyway.
They have no Navy. They have no radar. They have no Air Force. Their leaders are all dead. Khomeini is gone. For many years he ruled. He's gone. With all of that, let's see what happens. But from my standpoint, I don't care.
In theory, Trump could just declare himself the winner and unilaterally withdraw from the conflict, leaving the situation in limbo. For now, cargo transit through the strait has, of course, not resumed. It's not certain it'll resume at all. But it must be said that the ceasefire is holding for now, despite the Israel-Lebanon conflict. All of American society, both the left and the right, reacted with relief to the news of the American truce. But for different reasons. Democrats, because Donald Trump's reckless and criminal war has finally ended.
I am certainly relieved there's a recently reported ceasefire deal with Iran, but we shouldn't have been in this unlawful military conflict in the first place.
Republicans are cheering because the president won and showed his masterful ability to strike favorable deals.
I think it's very important to realize that this president's strength is in negotiations. And if you underestimate him, that sets your own peril. He is very good at winning, maybe the best we've ever had at it.
Democrats, meanwhile, blame Trump for Iran now controlling the Strait of Hormuz.
Even part of the Iranian statement, Donald Trump has agreed to give Iran control of the Strait of Hormuz. That is extraordinary. That is cataclysmic for the world. And it is just stunning that that's where we have gotten to, that Donald Trump took a military action that has apparently, at least for the time being, given Iran control over a critical waterway that they did not have control over before the war began.
Some wariness about the truce terms is seen among the biggest Republican hawks. Senator Lindsey Graham said Congress will need to carefully review the 10-point plan Iran proposed.
We must remember that the Strait of Hormuz was attacked by Iran after the start of the war, destroying freedom of navigation. Going forward, it is imperative Iran is not rewarded for this hostile act against the world. Regarding the details of an Iranian 10-point proposal to bring an end to the ongoing conflict, I look forward to carefully reviewing the document at the appropriate time and its submission to Congress for a vote, just like we did with the Obama JCPOA.
Trump's threat also turned out to be very scandalous, that a whole civilization will die tonight, and it will never be returned. And conservative media, hosts credited the ceasefire to the president's threat. Iran conceded due to this pressure.
We proved we can and will crush them. And it's kind of interesting, the same deal's been on the table for this entire time. And all of a sudden now they're going to go ahead and accept it. What changed? What changed was President Trump threatening to end the Islamic Republic completely. And I think that was an eye-opener. They believed him, and they should believe him.
Some members of Congress have spoken out against it.
The president's ominous threat that a whole civilization will be destroyed tonight cannot be simply brushed aside as an attempt to gain leverage in negotiations with Iran.
For some on the right, becoming disillusioned with Trump, the president's words sparked a storm of condemnation. Journalist Tucker Carlson said the military should disobey the president if he orders a nuclear strike.
Work in the White House, we're in the U.S. military. Now it's time to say no, absolutely not, and say it directly to the president, no. In case you're thinking about using some weapon of mass destruction against the population of Iran, in whose name we liberated Iran, we killed their religious leader for their benefit. Do you remember that? This was last month. Those people who are in direct contact with the president need to say no.
Former Fox News host Megyn Kelly, who stopped supporting Trump because of the Iranian war, did not hide her anger.
I mean, I don't know about you, but I am sick of this shit. I'm sick of it. Can't he just behave like a normal human? I mean, honestly, like the president, 3D chess, shut up. Fucking shut up about that shit. You don't threaten to wipe out an entire civilization. We're talking about civilians, just casually in a social media post.
Marjorie Taylor Greene was one of Trump's most ardent supporters in the U.S. Congress just a year ago. Then they had a falling out amid the Epstein file scandal. Either way, since then, Trump has come up with a nickname for her and calls her Marjorie. Trader Brown, that is, not green, but specifically brown, meaning not green, but brown. That's an insult, by the way, from the American president. Greene has left her post. Now she says the Republican Party needs to be burned to the ground.
We have to be realistic about the Republican Party. The Republican Party needs burned to the ground. It's completely controlled. As a matter of fact, much of Congress is controlled by AIPAC and by Zionists, and that is a serious problem.
One of Donald Trump's first public supporters, Alex Jones, now believes the president is showing signs of senile dementia.
That's why you'll have 5-6 times a day. Oh, we won, it's over. No, it's going to go on forever. Total destruction. I'll never let them have the Strait. Yes, we're giving up the Strait. I'm getting out of NATO. We're staying in NATO. And when you know people in early dementia, That is exactly what they do.
Voices of condemnation from formerly loyal Trumpists forced the president to write a long post.
I know why Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Candace Owens, and Alex Jones have all been fighting me for years, especially by the fact that they think it is wonderful for Iran, the world's leading state sponsor of terror, to have a fully functional nuclear weapon. Because both of these entities share one thing in common: low IQs. They're just stupid people. They know it, their families know it, and absolutely everyone else knows it too.
Then Trump went after each of the named individuals, called them losers, and said they weren't real MAGA. The president's aggressive post caused a rift within the Republican coalition. Some speakers supported the president. Opponents, on the other hand, expressed their dissatisfaction. Alex Jones even said that Trump is under the influence of some kind of demonic entity. Tucker Carlson reacted to the president's post in an interesting way. In response to the comments about a low IQ, the journalist quickly got to work and released his own merch. Caps with the words low IQ. They were part of a merch line called Thank You, Mr. President. Each such cap will cost a Tucker Carlson fan $35. Liberal politicians were also outraged by the threat of destroying an entire civilization. One congressman drafted an article of impeachment. 70 Democratic representatives called for the president's immediate removal and supported the motion. Some began to say that Donald Trump had lost his mind and was incapacitated. He must be removed from office using the appropriate amendment to the Constitution. Former Speaker Nancy Pelosi put it this way:
Donald Trump's instability has become more clear and dangerous than ever. If the cabinet is unwilling or unable to invoke the 25th Amendment and bring back a sense of sanity, Republicans must reconvene Congress to bring this conflict to a definitive end.
But such a maneuver is almost guaranteed to fail. At the same time, according to recent polls, more than half of Americans, 52%, support removing the president from office. Among them is 1 in 7 Republicans. Trump's threat to destroy a civilization even provoked a small skirmish between the administration and the Pope. The pontiff spoke out against such threats and called them absolutely unacceptable.
Chiedendo la pace. Today, as we all know, there has also been this threat against the entire people of Iran, and this is truly unacceptable. There are certainly issues of international law here, but even more so a moral issue for the good of the whole entire population. And I would like to invite everyone to truly think in their hearts about the many innocent people, so many children, so many elderly, completely innocent.
Leo XIV is the first American pope. Despite this, his relationship with Washington wasn't warm from the start. The Pope avoided direct conflict with the president, but sometimes made it clear he disapproved of the administration's actions. At the height of Trump's deportation campaign, the pontiff called on all bishops to express support for immigrants. Another time, the White House invited the pontiff to the celebration of the 250th anniversary of the United States. He declined the offer, but with the start of the Iranian war, these disagreements intensified. The head of the Pentagon has repeatedly stated that God protects American troops, that God is on the side of the United States, and also called for prayers in the name of Christ for victory in the Middle East. The Pope responded with a sermon saying that the Lord does not hear the prayers of those who wage war.
Brothers and sisters, this is our God, Jesus, King of Peace, who rejects war, whom no one can use to justify war. He does not listen to the prayers of those who wage war, but rejects them, saying, "Even though you make many prayers, I will not listen. Your hands are full of blood."
The international community has been quite restrained in its reaction to Donald Trump's words. European countries have preferred to ignore Trump's threats to destroy civilization. An unnamed representative of the European External Action Service told Politico the following:
Honestly, if we reacted every time somebody posted something outrageous online, that is all we would do. I don't get a feeling today that anybody in Brussels is taking this particular post differently than how we have taken the others.
So literally, when the US president threatens genocide, it's just someone posting some nonsense on the internet. That's how seriously Trump is taken in the world. The French foreign minister spoke in a similar vein. He called Trump's threats excessive and said that everything excessive is actually insignificant. He also recalled that this is far from Trump's first ultimatum since the start of the war. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte avoided commenting altogether, but instead declared support for the US president. Journalists asked Rutte if he considers Trump his daddy after the American president's extravagant statements. A year ago, the NATO Secretary General did indeed jokingly call Donald Trump exactly that. He just laughed and said he was misunderstood, blame it on a language barrier. Some members of the European Parliament spoke more decisively. German lawmaker Eric Marquardt called Trump a dangerous madman in the White House. And Irishman Barry Andrews stated that the US president's statements are genocidal and shameful. The UN spoke in its usual way regarding the words about the destruction of civilization. They stated that Secretary General Antonio Guterres is concerned by Trump's remarks. Guterres also called for the opening of the Strait of Hormuz. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights also condemned Trump. But the Russian authorities decided not to react to Trump's words at all. The level of Trump's public madness, and there's no other way to call it, is staggering. Fortunately, he's made so many outrageous statements that people have stopped taking him seriously. But just imagine if Vladimir Putin tomorrow called the Prime Minister of Lithuania a governor of a Russian federal subject and hinted at that country joining Russia. In how many minutes would full mobilization and trench digging begin in Lithuania? Or imagine if Xi Jinping said something like, "Tomorrow, Japanese civilization will perish." It's a real shame it turned out this way, but there's nothing to be done. It's hard to even imagine such a thing, yet Trump makes a bunch of such statements every day. And yet, we somehow carry on. Personally, I think Trump is demonstrating real, genuine madness. Fortunately, the American system is complex enough to prevent this madness from leading to a catastrophe. But even if a catastrophe is avoided, it still won't lead to anything good. But for now, let's get back to the ceasefire. So in the end, we have a lot of questions about how or if the ceasefire will work at all. Does it apply to Lebanon, for example, or not? The parties disagree on this issue. Will passage through the Strait of Hormuz eventually be opened? That's also unclear. Currently, there is no cargo traffic in the strait. At the same time, the parties initially seem to have agreed that it would remain open. Iranian officials have not made any statements saying that the strait is closed. However, Donald Trump is now making such statements. It's unclear if the US will actually intercept vessels or if Iran will charge tankers for passing through the strait. Overall, the situation hardly looks like a US victory. Even if the strait's eventually opened, it'll only be a return to the status quo. But even this isn't guaranteed. The Iranian leader was killed, and Iran lost its fleet and many missile capabilities. But is this what Donald Trump intended with this strike? Doesn't look like it. Moreover, in this war, Iran tested its own version of a nuclear umbrella, a blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. If Tehran can exit the conflict, even on status quo terms, the threat of a blockade will be seen much like the threat of a retaliatory nuclear strike. No American president will want to shut down a transport route through which 20% of the world's oil passes. I've already mentioned that for Americans, gas prices are an economic indicator, like the dollar exchange rate is for us. The higher it is, the worse it gets. Back then, many in the comments were surprised, asking, wait, does it really happen that if oil prices drop, gas prices follow? Yeah, it must be said that in Russia, gas pricing's a bit more complex, so such things aren't obvious to us. So you could say that by trying to strip Iran of its nuclear umbrella, Trump suddenly handed Tehran an equivalent. If the Americans attack you, just hide in bunkers, block the Strait of Hormuz, and shoot at everything you can reach. Sooner or later, the political climate in the States will be such that they'll come to you to ask for peace. And you'll probably even be able to bargain for some concessions. However, all this is only true if the war actually ends on status quo terms, and that scenario is far from guaranteed.